read the story by Jhumpa Lahiri called When Mr. Pirzada Came to Dine. Jhumpa Lahiri is a British American author known for her short stories, novels, and essays. And not only in English, and recently she is also writing in Italian. Her debut collection of short stories, The Interpreter of Maladies, won the Pulitzer Prize in 1999 for fiction. And her first novel, The Namesake, was adapted into a popular film of the same name. Her actual name is Nilanjana Sudeshna Lahiri. She was born in London. Was the daughter of of Bengali immigrants Amar Lahiri and Tapati Lahiri. Her father moved to London in 1966, and in 1969 they moved to Cambridge, Massachusetts, when she was 3. Lahiri is both an American as well as a British citizen. According to Lahiri, she was an Indian citizen as she acquired an Indian passport and was appended to her mother's passport. And she says it meant something to her mother emotionally. She had to renounce her Indian citizenship when she became a naturalized American, or it was later that she received her British citizenship. Lahiri considers herself an American and has said this in I quote, "I wasn't born here, but I might as well have been." So one can see, as I was talking about in the earlier lecture, a certain kind of a fragmentation. So she is born to Bengali parents. She has British, American affiliation and citizenships. Now, on top of that, she is writing about Indian cultures and Indian parents and their memories, right? So, one can see what we call as a hyphenated subjectivity, that she is British hyphen American, if you go by her bio, and she also is writing about Indian realities, and will read a story which is about that. The story called When Mr. Pirzada Came to Dine is from her first collection of short stories, Interpreter of Maladies, which went on to win the Pulitzer Prize. So the story is about a time in 1971. The narrator is a small girl, it's Lilia. Lilia's father works at the university, and they are Indian. So Lilia's family, father, mother, and her, they are Indian family who is in America right now. And her father comes across Mr. Pirzada, who is from Bangladesh, but now is on a fellowship at the same university. And this is happening around the time of 1971, when Bangladesh was not yet born. It was East Pakistan. And there is the imminence of the war and precarity and the vulnerability of the entire rebellion is there, and the war between West and East Pakistan and India's involvement in that. And in this entire scenario, Mr. Pirzada is away, far away from his home. So that is the backdrop within which the story takes place. So Mr. Pirzada comes to their house regularly. Her father has invited him for dinner almost regularly. Mr. Pirzada comes over, and you can see a bond between them developing, which is at this point of time gives a kind of a sense of home to Mr. Pirzada. Through the discussions, Lilia, who is a young girl who does not know about these realities, comes to know about what is India, what is Pakistan, what is Bangladesh, the entire history of subcontinent and the way that things are happening across in the subcontinent. Mr. Pirzada comes over for dinner regularly and the family entertains him, and gradually also gets to know that about Mr. Pirzada's anxieties regarding his family back home, who are caught in the middle of the war itself. Mr. Pirzada and regularly his parents try to try to listen to the news, which gives them some idea of how the scene is unfolding back in Bangladesh, and what any information that they can scour, they are trying to get it for him. So it's a very different kind of a space that is opened up here in Lilia's house itself. And Mr. Pirzada suffers through this distance, trying to keep his head above water, and is helped immensely by the hospitality of this Indian household. By the end of the story, we get to know that India has intervened in this war, and the anxieties are really high for Mr. Pirzada, who wants to go back to his family, and later they get to know that he has been he leaves after finishing his term, his fellowship term. He leaves back for Bangladesh. They don't hear from him. Only later they get a card from him saying that he's safely united with his family and all of his family is doing well, and the story comes to an end there, with little Lilia thanking the universe or the powers that may be for the safety of Mr. Pirzada and his family. If we look at the story in detail, there are 2-3 themes that emerge, and those are themes that we'll focus on. First is the theme of the nation and history itself. If you look at the introduction to the story itself, you will see that history beckons the story. History forms not only the backdrop, history is a character in the story itself. In the autumn of 1971, a man used to come to our house bearing confections in his pocket and hopes of ascertaining the life or death of his family. His name was Mr. Pirzada and he came from Dhaka, now the capital of Bangladesh, but then a part of Pakistan. That year, Pakistan was engaged in civil war. The eastern frontier, where Dhaka was located, was fighting for autonomy from the ruling regime in the west. In March, Dhaka had been invaded, torched, and shelled by the Pakistani army. Teachers were dragged onto the streets and shot, women dragged into barracks and raped. By the end of the summer, 300,000 people were said to have died in Dhaka. Mr. Pirzada had a 3-storied home, a lectureship in botany at the university, and a wife of 20 years and 7 daughters between the ages of 6 and 16, whose name all began with the letter A. So, we are told of the reality of the space itself, that Bangladesh or Dhaka is under precarious condition right now, where 300,000 people have died. So history is linked to the story itself, as I was saying, like Midnight Children, where the protagonist is born on the midnight itself when India and Pakistan are gain independence. The umbilical cord between history and narrative is established here also by Lahiri. And you see this more and more throughout the story. The history, as I said, of the subcontinent is not in the background only. It is a character itself, because as she mentions that 1971, the time of the war, and it was Bangladesh, which was then part of Pakistan. It was engaged in a civil war. All the details are given. So we are revisiting history, and I'll come back to it in a very different way, through a very individualized perspective, and through also a perspective of, as we can see through the tense, of memory, a certain kind of nostalgia, as our keyword already I had identified. That seems to be one of the recurring tropes here. But this history, this emphasis on history keeps on telling us how history creates identities also. And these identities are very interesting identities, as we will see. These are all hyphenated identities. Very interestingly, we get to see two different kind of subjectivities here. One is the family of Lilia, as we see, who are Indians, but then they are now settled in America. So they are Indian Americans. Whereas Mr. Pirzada is from Bangladesh. He is not, however, relocated there. He is not hyphenated in that sense. He is, however, temporarily migrated to another country. So he is away from the entire violence, away from war, away from the entire precarious condition. Yet he is very much tethered to what is happening back home in Bangladesh, which is probably not the same as the household here. And that develops the story itself. At first, I knew nothing of the reasons for his visit. I was 10 years old and was not surprised that my parents, who were from India, had a number of Indian acquaintances at the university, should ask Mr. Pirzada to share our meals. It was a small campus with narrow brick walkways and white pillared buildings located on the fringes of what seemed to be an even smaller town. The supermarket did not carry mustard oil. Doctors did not make house calls, neighbors never dropped by without an invitation, and these things every so often my parents complained. We'll come back to the cultural differences in a bit, but these are markers of cultural differences, as we'll discuss later. In search of compatriots, they used to trail their finger at the start of each semester through columns of the university directory, circling surnames similar to their part of the world. You can see history now. History and identity are intertwined here. That these people have migrated from India to this university town in America, but yet the idea of home still is there, that like they're looking for people from that part of the country, that part meaning the subcontinent. And that's how they come. They found Mr. Pirzada, phoned him, invited him to our home. And when Lilia says that when it's an Indian man, her father corrects her that Mr. Pirzada is no longer considered Indian, not since partition. Our country was divided in 1947. So history is a character here itself. So Lilia is told in no uncertain terms that, look, this man that we are meeting, he may be from our part of the country, our part of the globe. And here, our here means the home that means America. And there, for her parents, that's their home. And this man belongs to that part of the world. However, there are interesting and important distinctions, that he is not an Indian in that sense. He is a Bangladeshi because partition has taken place. So then we are asked and brought, this question beckons itself, that what constitutes nations? how do we know who are our people? As I said, the space of the university town becomes a very interesting space away from these national boundaries, because you are trying to make it a bigger cosmopolis in that sense. So that's why you are inviting someone like Mr. Pirzada, right? So when I said I thought was the date of Indian independence from Britain, my father said that too. One moment we were free and then we were sliced up like a pie. Hindus here, Muslims there. Dhaka no longer belongs to us. He told me that during the partition, Hindus and Muslims set fire to each other's home and everything. So, and Lilia says it made no sense to me. And you can see a certain kind of a distance and distinction from her parents. So, for her parents, if the home was India and home is India, for her it is not. And you can clearly see the distinction. That's why it doesn't make sense to her. She does not understand, she does not know. And she thinks, and this is where the notion of the nation becomes complicated. She says, Mr. Pirzada and my parents spoke the same language, laughed at the same jokes, looked more or less the same. They ate pickled mangoes with their meals, rice every night for supper with their hands like my parents. Mr. Pirzada also took off shoes, chewed fennel seeds after meals for digestives, drank no alcohol. But nevertheless, my father insisted that there was the difference. And how is the difference made known to her? Through a map. That there was a map on the wall, and father takes her that, look, this is the map, this is where India is, this is where Pakistan is, this is where Bangladesh is. Through that, we are given a sense of imagined community. So, India becomes one imagined community, Bangladesh becomes a separate imagined community. However, in the university town, as we will go on to see, this imagined community gets complicated. Mr. Pirzada is Bengali, but he is Muslim, my father informed, therefore he lives in East Pakistan, not in India. And then he goes on to Pakistan. As you see, Lilia, it is a different country, a different color. Pakistan was yellow, not orange. I noticed there were two distinct parts to it, one much larger than the other, separated by an expanse of Indian territory. It was as if California and Connecticut constituted a nation apart from the US. So, you can see and therefore, the narration is from the child's point of view, because the child represents the diaspora. That's why the child doesn't understand, and the frames of reference are all drawn from America itself. That's why references to California and Connecticut in order to understand East and West Pakistan. And also what the child's point of view highlights is the peculiarity of the situation, is also the artificiality of national boundaries itself, that they are eating the same thing, the cultural habits are the same, the food habits are the same, the way we understand kinship is the same, then how is the border tenable then? So, that therefore, the university space emerges as a different kind of space, as an alternative space to this world divided by maps. So, if cartography comes handy in understanding national boundaries and creating imagined communities, the university space as an alternative space creates a different kind of imagined communities, where Mr. Pirzada can come and sit and be part of their household itself. So, and then if we will see by the end of the story, if when it starts, Lilia is made aware of the distinction. By the end of the story, when the war has started, you will see a very different kind of an approach towards history. What they heard that evening, for many evenings after that, was that India and Pakistan were drawing closer and closer to the war, troops from both sides lined the border. Dhaka was insisting on nothing short of independence. The war was to be waged on East Pakistani soil. The United States was siding with West Pakistan and the Soviet Union with India and what was soon to be Bangladesh. War was declared officially on December 4th, and 12 days later, the Pakistani army, weakened by having to fight 3,000 miles from their sources of supply, surrendered in Dhaka. All of these facts I know only now, for they are available to me in any history book in any library. But that then it remained for the most part a remote mystery with haphazard clues. We'll come back to what this means, these two last lines, that all these facts we know and what happens to history, and this is a personalized remembrance. What I remembered during those 12 days of the war was that my father no longer asked me to watch news with them, and that Mr. Pirzada stopped bringing me candy, and that my mother refused to serve anything other than boiled egg with rice and dinner. I remember some nights helping my mother spread a sheet and a blanket on the couch so that Mr. Pirzada could sleep there, and high-pitched voices hollering in the middle of the night when my parents called our relatives in Calcutta to learn more about the situation. Most of all, I remember 3 of them operating during that time as if they were a single person sharing a single meal, a single body, a single silence and a single fear. What we see from here is the culmination of that alternative space, that third space as Sousa might call it. So one sees that the father who insisted on a differentiation actually goes on to become a single person. All 3 of them become one person. They are unified in their sorrows, they share meals, they let go of elaborate meals, and there is only boiled egg, as we are told, to in a kind of an austerity, and that is observed in memory of the family members of Mr. Pirzada who might be in very dire situation considering there is a war going on. So these people, they become one unit. They are divided by nations back home, but here they go back to their older affiliations. They go back to their older solidarities, their older kinships, which go beyond the national boundaries, the boundaries that were drawn by the colonial powers. So what we get to see is the emergence of the diasporic space as the alternative space. Whereas history, the colonial history, enabled the national divide, migration here has enabled to overcome that. Migration here helps them overcome those national boundaries. So what we get to see is a kind of an unusual solidarity, considering the precarity of the situation. If you go, one has to see, there are n number of references here that Lilia also gets invested in it. One who had no idea of where Bangladesh is even as a country, she prays for them, she starts thinking about, she thinks of them every now and then, and at the end of the story, that's what she says, since January, each night before bed, I had continued to eat for the sake of Pirzada's family a piece of candy that I had saved from Halloween. That night there was no need to, eventually I threw them all away. That the family was involved altogether. She says the 3 of them became one. It also maybe in some ways Lilia was also part of it, even when she is maintaining her own distance from these 3 also marks the gap. That's why I said the fragmented nature of diaspora itself. and to prove that, we can see in page 4, there is a mention where Lilia says, but the more I tried to distract myself, the more I began to convince myself that Mr. Pirzada family was all likelihood dead. Eventually, I took a square of white chocolate out of the box and unwrapped it, and then did something I had never done before. I put the chocolate in my mouth, letting it soften until the late possible moment, and then as I chewed it, I prayed that Mr. Pirzada's family was safe and sound. I had never prayed for anything before and never been taught and told to, but I decided, given the circumstances, that it was something I should do. That night when I went to the bathroom, I only pretended to brush my teeth, for I feared that somehow rinse the prayer out as well. So you can think about how this becomes an alternative space which goes beyond national boundaries. One other thing that is very important also to think about is the idea of hostility and hospitality that go on together. So as we discuss this last portion, you will see that war is going on and parents have become like one with and trying to comfort him and trying to give him as much support as possible to Mr. Pirzada. Back home, it's hostility that is going on, right? And here we have hospitality that is being rendered here. So one also has to think of Mr. Pirzada, the story itself, in terms of these kinds of tropes also, the binary of hostility and hospitality, which might also help us understand the nation and nationality boundaries itself, the nation itself, how nations are carved out, the idea of hostility that's supposed to be inherent within us, and what in the first place the father trying to highlight that he is a Muslim, he is not an Indian, he lives in Pakistan, not in India, and that's what. So all of this, the kind of hostility that is there also within the father itself at a certain level, where that's why he wants to clarify that to his daughter, that where exactly Mr. Pirzada is from. Also change into hospitality. I think the notion and the message that is being given is of universal humanity, which go beyond the ideas of nation itself. So thereby we can see an emergence of a certain internationalism itself. So away from national boundaries, beyond national boundaries, is that we are from the same culture, we share certain habits, so we should be able to share grief and vulnerability together also.